Good morning, everybody. This is a wonderful day for all of us who are Catholics and Christians, and of course, every child of God, no matter whatever denomination or whatever profession you cling to. Today is Divine Mercy Sunday, the big Sunday, the real big deal, a bonus Sunday for all of us. What is Divine Mercy Sunday all about? Well, we cannot talk about divine mercy without talking about divine justice. Divine justice requires that we repair all the damages and infringements we have made against an all-loving God, against his divine love. Wow, that's a tall order. How are we going to do this? It's so massive. We have no way of doing this. Well, the good news today is that God chose to step in. God chose to begin that journey. He looked down with mercy on us. So, the whole thing about divine justice implies that for us to repair the damages, we must do divine appeasement. God started this journey by dying on the cross. So God did his own part of helping us to appropriate his mercy. So on the wood of the cross, Jesus forgave us. But was that just enough? Well, it is enough insofar as we do our own part. And our own part is to do what St. Paul talks about in the first Colossians, where he talks about his suffering making up for what is lacking in the sufferings of Christ. Not that actually anything is lacking, but that there is our own part to do in this whole drama. So our part is simply to respond to the invitation of God to appropriate his mercy. We do this by appropriating the sacraments through fasting, penance, and through the spiritual exercises we do, the corporal and the spiritual works of mercy we do. But more importantly, we do this through responding to the sacrament of his love, the sacrament of reconciliation. Today, in the gospel of today, it came out clearly. Jesus met his disciples. He gave them the power to forgive sins. It is entirely up to us to appropriate this. But was this again sufficient? Ordinarily, it will be, but because we are who we are, sinful humanity, we don't appropriate this sacrament the way it is. So, for the sacrament to be very effective, 4 conditions must be met. One is that we must immerse ourselves in deep reflection, and then to remember those areas and those things through which we have offended the love of God. Sometimes this is not that easy. The second condition is that we must be confident enough that we are talking to God and say everything to the priest. He is only representing Christ, and we trust that God forgives us when we receive the absolution. The third part is the firm purpose of amendment. That is when we agree that we are not going to do this again. But sometimes the much we can offer is our prayer of, I will try not to sin again. Well, it requires that we decide. It's not about trying. But we know that is the much we can offer. And we offer that. God understands. Then the other part is what is called satisfaction. And satisfaction is our own little attempt. Just like when a child spoils a toy and you're trying to repair it, and the mom is saying, please give that toy back to me, let me get it repaired. Say, no, I can fix it. So we make every effort to fix our own sins. But try as we may, it doesn't lie in our power, because we can't really do that, because we are dealing with the justice of God. So satisfaction is all about like community service. You have done something wrong, you've been forgiven, but you have to do community service. So it is a temporal punishment that is due to even our confessed sins. How do we get rid of this? We get into another stage, which is called indulgences. We have recourse to the indulgences. These are avenues provided by church through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, through which we can cleanse ourselves and try to make up for the damages we have caused. Again, there are two types of indulgences, the partial and the plenary indulgence. The partial indulgence forgives part of the sin, part of the punishment due to sin that we have committed, part of that community service, whether we do it here or we do it in purgatory or wherever. Partial indulgence removes partially the punishment due to sin. Now, there is the other one, the big one, the plenary indulgence. And this one wipes away everything. We get plenary indulgence, especially in times, there are many occasions through which we get plenary indulgence, reading scriptures for 30 minutes and saying the attached prayers during the sacrament of anointing of the sick. And this is why it is important that we don't leave these sacraments late when the person cannot participate in it. Sometimes we think that when a priest visits a sick person, it's a sacrament of the dying. No, it's the sacrament of the sick. We all get sick and we all hope to recuperate. So the prayer is to help them recuperate, not to help them die. But should they die, at least they are well prepared. So we receive this plenary indulgence. But there are conditions for receiving plenary indulgence. We must go to confession, we must receive communion, we must say the attached prayers, and the one we say for the intentions of the Holy Father. So, is that all? No. There is one big catch, that while doing this, we will never have any attachment to any sin. So it's not like going to confession when I know I'm going to do something in the future which will contradict my confession. So, and that is a tall order. Attachment to sin. It's a big one. And we struggle with it. How do we deal with this? A story was told about St. Philip Neri. One day the congregation gathered to appropriate the sacrament, the plenary indulgence, which was to be given to the people. And it was revealed to him through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit that it was only him and a little boy of 7 years that are fit to receive that plenary indulgence, because they are the only ones that are properly disposed. So we are left with limitations and our inability to really appropriate the mercy of God in its fullness. So we are stuck. What do we do? This is where God chose to come in. And this happened at the eve of the World War II, when God approached the little girl, the little nun of Poland, Saint Faustina Kowalska, and opened out to her the treasures of God's mercy, revealed to her God's intention to forgive us and to help us in our little efforts. So, what does Jesus promise to St. Faustina? Jesus promised St. Faustina that all the souls that shall make confession and receive communion on divine mercy of prior, confession maybe before then, shall receive complete forgiveness of sins and the punishment due to it. Incredible. It's like a second baptism, like rewashing us again, and we are pure. All our previous efforts don't seem to add up. So this is the big thing, and this is why this Sunday is called the Sunday of Extraordinary Graces, or the Great Graces. So we are living at a time when God chose to be very, very bountiful, merciful. He poured it out. So what do we do to appropriate this mercy? What we have to do is to show the desire. And how do you show the desire? It is required that we make confession. How do we make confession in a time of lockdown? Catechism of the Church teaches us that when we make perfect act of contrition with the hope of going to confession when next we have the opportunity, that is accepted by God. So we have the opportunity to do that. The other one is to receive communion. And now you don't have that opportunity to receive Jesus physically. But the church also teaches that spiritual communion is as effective also as this. At least we learned that through St. Thomas Aquinas. So we have nothing hindering us except our desire. And that desire is our ability to pull ourselves together, to think about ways we have offended God, and to say sorry and to receive him spiritually. The catch here is that there is no condition like if you are not attached to any sin. This is the big catch in the whole thing about the divine mercy. And some people will say, how is that? Well, you're entitled to accept this or not, and that is why the prayer of the divine mercy requires that we trust. The prayer says, Jesus, I trust in you. It may be too good to be good, but the trust in Jesus, that he will fulfill his promises, is the big bonus here. When St. Faustina was writing her diary, at a point, it was like, I'm saying too much. Is it really what God would want to do? And Jesus intervened and said, my daughter, what you are writing down is just like a drop in the ocean. So we are blessed. So many graces is poured on us. Again, at another time, St. Faustina, blown away by the enormity and the unfathomable love of God, wrote that there are moments and mysteries in divine mercy which will astound each and every one of us. And she says, let the judgment of souls cease, for the mercy of God is extraordinary. This is the message of hope I leave with you, that God, who knows how weak we are, how feeble we are, have decided to bring down his mercy as close as it can get. What are you waiting for? Go out there. Bring your family. Bring yourselves. Bring your relatives to immerse themselves in this ocean of mercy. Nobody is rejected. Nobody is excluded. It's entirely up to you now to make the best out of this Sunday. The Lord be with you.